Alright, round two. I apologize, this is the second video I'm making on this because I accidentally deleted the first one. As stated, an accident, so like a moron. But let's get into it. I will clarify, these are my personal stances on humor and behavior, so technically, not everyone would apply to this, but of course, plenty would, and I would argue for them firmly. Still, people can disagree, you are more than welcome to, especially on something as contentious as this. But let's get into it. I apologize again for having to film this again, both to myself and to you. So let's start off with the basics of humor. 1. Humor has to have a point. It can't just be purely random. When you see something stupid, like for example 6'7", well then that's not really humorous. It's not a joke. You could argue at most it is an inside gag. And even then I would question that heavily. Because the only reason it's quote-unquote funny is because people laugh at it. It's not actually a joke. It's not actually humorous. It's just the idea of, hey, everyone else is laughing, we should too. It is a pure herd mentality. And these things that people laugh at for being purely random are not truly humorous. They're not truly jokes. Because they don't rely on proper setup and execution. Jokes firmly rely on either subversion or witty observation. For an example of subversion, wordplay is a very good one. For example, when I say something is corny, and there's a grain of truth to it, I'm of course making a double entendre. Those words, corny, for one, and grain of truth, are playing two roles. One, corny as in a bad joke, but also corny as in an actual piece of corn. Grain solidifies this, indicating both a small amount and the actual grains, cereal grains like corn and rye and wheat, etc. It's a subversion because it's a double entendre. It's not playfully straight. For example, the latter, just listen to George Carlin, honestly. The man has like 5 of them, at least, in every few minutes. To give a specific example from one of his stand-ups on soft language, there was one where he said, along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here, and sometime during my life, I didn't ask for this, I didn't consent to it. Toilet paper became bathroom tissue. Bathroom tissue. It's an observation. It's not necessarily a subversion, but the way he frames it, sets it up, and then shows it, makes it funny. It's humorous, because the observation makes the situation look absurd. The idea of just changing a name for no good reason is absurd. And so people laugh. But why is it funny? It's not because it's random or out of the blue. In fact, Carlin sets up this heavily. But rather, it is because the observation is hilarious. It isn't what one initially expects. You expect things to be, reasonable, standard. And then suddenly, things have shifted. It's not completely random. There's still a firm layer of what is to be expected. It's just, it plays on those expectations to deliver something different, but not disconnected. Pure randomness is disconnected. It lacks a point. Take the joke E, even. Even that still has some level of humor because of the face that is often alongside it. When you see an E in the wild, and you know you're referencing the joke, or the meme, you immediately imagine that picture of Shrek villain with a famous YouTuber's face. If you know which ones they are, go ahead, say them. But the funny thing is more or less the background rather than it itself. Because let's face it, if you just saw E, let's say it was just a white thing and just E, no one would laugh. No one would laugh at that. They laugh because of how it is paired with something else. And so, the E itself is not funny without context, a setup. And then, that setup is subverted. And you get the famous photoshopped picture. And thus, the joke works, because it has a point. There's a reason when you talk about this with comedians, they'll mention a setup and then a punchline, a joke. It relies, fundamentally, humor does, on setting up something to establish a normal, to establish something understandable. Because without the understanding, without that understanding innately of what's going on, guess what? It fails. Humor does not work. Because if it's just random, just a fish falling from the sky with no context or any indication, well, what's to laugh at? Where is the humor? There is none. There just isn't. Because fundamentally, it's not a subversion. It's not a witty observation. And so it doesn't work. That is simply the reality of it. Without that, without those witty observations or subversions, and most importantly, without the setup and the establishment, it's not funny. It's not humor or a joke. And these are important because they reflect behavior, and behavior itself reflects personal character. Now, I'm not going to be the one to say, you can't make racist jokes or anything like that. No, you can. You gotta know how, and you gotta make a proper subversion or witty observation, like, that stereotype isn't completely wrong, just as an example. Now, it may not be the best because I was doing this ad hoc and not necessarily planning on a proper comment there, but the basic idea of a racist joke still works. But you have to portray it properly, because otherwise it can just be a dig, and no one respects that, or at least very few people. And of course, back to behavior. When it comes to personal character, how you act, how you behave, reflects both how people see you and how you actually are. Because people take those experiences and build something off of them. Understanding, okay, this works to get things I want, this doesn't. How should I behave? Well, like this, or like that. And so that behavior of yours, how you behave and how you act, it reflects on how people perceive you and how you perceive yourself and what is right to do. And so constantly joking, constantly behaving in a way that is inappropriate is not good. Why? Because it can easily, and is almost guaranteed to, demean one's character alongside public misbehaving. And so, how people act will change. How people act will not be as good. Because fundamentally, the joking is not effective. You're treated as unserious, and rightly so. You're not treated properly. Because why should we, or anyone else, behave in an appropriate manner to someone who doesn't behave appropriately anyways? If you're not going to act like an adult, people will not treat you as an adult. And that applies both to me, and to you, and to everyone else. If I act inappropriately, you can shame me all you freaking want, and I don't blame you. Why? Because it is bad to do. It is demeaning. It degenerates society. It is a rot on society that will continually hurt us, because to continue to misbehave in a manner that is inappropriate, especially in public, degenerates society. You are a degenerate force. It isn't good. There's sometimes you can relax, especially in private. When you're with family, generally speaking, you can behave more appropriately, specifically purely with family. You cannot act like a complete buffoon just because you're around your family. If there are others observing, you still have to maintain some level of civility, some level of appropriate behavior. And thus, you must act in a reasonable manner given that. But if you don't, and instead continue to engage in the constant joking, the constant unserious behavior, and the constant denial of reality to the point where you treat randomness as somehow funny, well then, you're just going to make things worse. It isn't good. In fact, for me personally, it grates my gears to no freaking end, because you are acting childish. Call me having a stick up my rear, but that's just how it is. You do not behave like a toddler and expect to be treated like anything other than. You do not behave in an inappropriate manner without expecting that to be people's judgments of you. And people will judge you. We always judge each other. That is not a bad thing, that's just life. People will judge. They will always judge. Only the most apathetic and uncaring people will not hold an opinion on an action. If I do this, You're gonna think something of me because of it, are you not? If I hurt someone, that's gonna cause a reaction. If I help someone, same deal. People will always have opinions. They will always have perceptions. And so, your character will be defined by your behaviors. It'll be defined by how people see you and how you see yourself. And so, if that is the case, behave appropriately. Especially because behaving in an upstanding way encourages a better world, and it benefits one's community and family. Think about it. If you go around being polite to people, Mr., Miss, Ma'am, Sir, etc., you help people, you open the door for people, you generally behave in an upstanding way and don't actively go your way to cause any issues. Well then, people are going to treat you better. And some may even copy you. Just as someone may copy someone doing something stupid because, hey, someone else is doing it. They may copy and could very well engage in such behaviors as you do that are good and moral and upstanding. Those noble behaviors become copied and continued. They repeat and spread. And tell me, what would you rather have in your world? Would you rather have people engaging in constant jokes, constant nonchalance, without actually caring about anything or anyone else? Or one where, sure, they may be a bit more serious, but they care about each other genuinely. They actually put respect upon others and don't harm them. They're honest and straightforward while still holding some level of restraint. The honesty is not complete. They're not showing off their worst desires, but they are showing off their care and their compassion. Which world would you rather live in? I know my answer. What about yours? Tell me. Go ahead. And with that, I must compound it by saying bluntly, there is no reason to respect a person who does not behave in an appropriate manner and who does not respect others. Could you apply that to me? More or less likely. And I don't care. Go ahead, apply it to me. I will gladly be judged by the same scales I weigh others upon, because it is just and fair. If I don't live up to all of them, fine. I have not lived up to many things, I believe, and I don't like it, but it is the way it is. And I try to get better, and however many times I fail, I still do hold those positions. I don't make an exception for me. If I do something wrong, I make a stupid joke, or I behave in an inappropriate manner, that's still on me. Fundamentally, I do not shift the blame on that, nor should I, because that is on me. But what's on you is your behavior. You can't just suddenly pray and hope that things work out. You can't suddenly manifest things. You have to act, and act appropriately if you want the best outcome. You have to act as is right and noble to achieve what is best. You don't just pray or try to manifest or do any other witchcraft or sorcery to get what you want. Physical action, taking initiative, behaving appropriately. That is how you get results. And that starts with your behavior. Because you can't do anything if you aren't willing to act, and that stems from one's behavior and one's activity. I have many pet peeves with this, of course, especially the things I mentioned up here that I didn't like. The randomness, the stupidity. I've dealt with enough of it to be annoyed, especially in college. You would think 18-year-olds would be more, shall we say, mature than high schoolers. I'll be honest, I am pretty sure my high school classmates were more mature than most of the people I have met in college. Some are appropriate, plenty aren't, and it annoys me to no end. So needless to say, I'm a bit on a thin thread when it comes to it, so it often came more to ranting during this video, and I apologize for that. But I do hold firmly to my stances. Feel free to disagree. Argue against me, go right on ahead. But I do stand by it. And for good reason. You want a better society, start with better behavior. Want better behavior? Start with taking things seriously. Not everything is a joke. Not everything should be treated as if it's just funny because it's not expected. It is not the unexpected itself that is funny, but ensuring the unexpected is connected to that which is normal and stable. A horse does not work if it can't balance, nor can a society work without stability. You must have something to stabilize things around. Otherwise, your jokes aren't funny, your society doesn't work, and constant entropy becomes atrophy. It becomes a recipe for destruction of society and function. Behave yourself, essentially. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.